Mr. President, thank you. I would like to thank this chamber for the chance of discussing here today something that is extremely serious, because I believe that as well as you, we all shared a sense of not only sadness but also indignation when we learned in the evening of the 27th of February of the murder of Boris Nemtsov in Moscow. He was killed just 2 days before leading a demonstration against the war in Ukraine and the effects of the economic crisis in Russia. On Sunday last week, tens of thousands of citizens in Moscow, but also in other cities, turned these marches into a tribute to a man who has served his country as a deputy prime minister in the 90s and who since then had relentlessly tried to bring his country forward. All 28 European Union ambassadors, together with our European Union head of delegation, were united in attending his funeral on Tuesday, joining an impressive crowd. Let me share here the words expressed by President Schulz on Russia's refusal to let one of you, Ms. Kalniete, into Russia to attend his funeral. And the same happened also to other representatives of European Union member states. This goes against the spirit of our visa facilitation agreement, and this follows similar incidents that happened already. I remember when Mrs. Harms and Mr. Landsbergis had a similar refusal to enter the country. And I join the words of President of the European Parliament in saying that this is simply not acceptable. We shall remember Boris as a strong advocate for a modern, democratic, for an open Russia, a Russia open to the world. He defended values which we all share: respect for human dignity, commitment to democracy, to accountability, belief in civil society as a force. He was opposed to war in Ukraine, and he was gathering evidence on the involvement of Russian troops. Yesterday, I met here in Strasbourg, in this parliament, Mikhail Kazinov, that shared with him his political commitment. It has been for me a way to honour his memory and to express once again our sadness for the loss that his family and his friends and his colleagues have suffered, and for the gap he leaves in the political life in Russia. But it has also been, for me, a chance to discuss the state of democracy in Russia. Russian citizens deserve no less than a democratic and open Russia. Strengthening political freedoms and supporting the consolidation of democracy are, moreover, objectives set out in the first article of the Partnership and Cooperation Agreement between the European Union and Russia. We support Russian organisations who are working on improving the legal framework in Russia. In our human rights consultations, we have called on Russia time and again to establish a level playing field for political parties by allowing opposition parties to play a role and by ensuring diversity of the media. Looking at the state of democracy in Russia today, we see that freedom of expression is under increased pressure. Opposition parties struggle to exist and to have access to mainstream media. Some have been repeatedly denied registration. The last Duma elections in 2011 were described as slanted in favour of the ruling party, I quote, by the OSCE ODIHR. We remember that the Russian population opposed those practices by taking to the streets, leading to the well-known Bolotnaya Square trials. Individual leaders who emerged from those events are constantly harassed, while others left Russia out of fear for their freedom or for the very same life. This assassination in these days brings back in our minds the memories of many others. Natalia Estemirova, Anna Politkovskaya, Stanislav Markelov, Anastasia Barburova, Sergei Magnitsky, Alexander Litvinenko. Journalists, lawyers, intelligence officers, human rights defenders, they had little in common until they became victims of those who portray so-called enemies of the state as legitimate targets. We all know that the conflict in Ukraine has intensified the public discourse against the too famous fifth column. Let us not forget those who face trial in Russia. through unfair procedures because of the Ukrainian conflict, like Nadia Savchenko and Oleg Sentsov, arrested in Crimea. Russian authorities have not only the duty to conduct a full and transparent investigation into the murder of Boris, they also have to put an end to the climate of suspicion, hatred and intolerance for diversity of opinion. The defence of basic freedoms, including the freedom of expression, is, I would like to remind it in this room, a statutory obligation for all members of the United Nations. I thank you.